Here we go. Episode 100 today. We've been doing this.
Yeah, it's like that's almost 2 years worth. That's pretty crazy, dude.
Nice big round number in our decimal math.
Yeah. So we have been speaking into the void for 2 years straight. Awesome.
We keep doing this.
Yeah. Speaking into the void, maybe I'll just retweet it to my followers that don't give a shit about me.
Yeah, it should be on my profile, streaming live on X, YouTube, Rumble. You know, I need to dig in and connect on Fountain and get it. Well, I've never had this on like Spotify or Apple, but those are routes that I just need to frickin' do. But every week I'm like, oh, I got to do that, and but it's a process. So, oh man, I'm all buttered up now. I was telling offline, thinking of ontological shock and all the things. I was sort of like going through my fast. Hey, Johnny, he's
hey, what's up, Johnny? Thank you.
100th weekly episode here. Yeah, a fast, feeling that energy, and then coming out of a fast and feeling that energy, and then paying taxes and doing fiat work, grind, and it just all hits me at once. And then as I look at whether I pay attention to news or study things Bitcoin wise, man, a lot just piles into my brain, and it's like, I don't know what to think right now. I'm kind of just in my own little ontological shock.
Oh dear. Well, I mean, like in terms of the ontology of things, like I think I'm kind of going through a similar thing, especially with writing this book. I just sent you those chapters a couple days ago, right?
But, yeah, I've been reading them too.
Oh, have you really?
It's well, not to deviate. I was just saying it's better. It's and from the start. I just page one intro, and I'm like, I had to look at the old ones and go, oh, this is all new. This is different. So anyway, but it starts out. It starts out with a better kind of hook intro.
Oh,
and anyway, it's better written. Yeah, it's improving.
Yeah. Well, hopefully, when it gets to the publisher, they'll agree with your assessment. I'm just now. It's funny because we're talking about modern money and taxation and all this kind of stuff, and I'm literally like reworking chapter 10 right now, which is all about industrial money and taxation and how that came to be. And so yeah, it's weird, like unpacking this whole thing of money. Like, where did money come from, right? Like just that idea, and as we were kind of discussing before, like one of the things I've realized for me personally anyway is money is so deeply woven through every single thing we touch and do and think about and how we operate that, like, when you start pulling on that thread, like when you go down the Bitcoin rabbit hole, quote unquote, like you are not just unpacking like, oh, the Fed, or oh, sound money, or oh, gold, or oh, property, or anything like that. You're literally unpacking like, oh, life. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's what I'm hitting. And like as I read it again, even as I've read the earlier drafts, some of that just, it has to hit me in waves where I read it. I'm like, oh, I had all these epiphanies and paradigm shifts. I'm like, oh. And then I know maybe it's time to file chapter 11 and bag out. No, but
well, chapter 7, dude, it's a clean slate, man. You just get out. Chapter
7 and get out.
Yeah.
So all that, paradigm shifting, and then
I'm glad I'm glad you didn't file chapter 11.
No tax financial advice here. Even as I reread it, I'm like, oh yeah. No, I get it. But even as my brain is more ready for it, it also creates deeper fundamental things to reconcile about like what it is in the hell that I'm doing in life. Because it's not just, oh, the government, or history, politics, money, all the things. It's like I'm trying to reevaluate certain foundational things in life that if I'd have just known this years ago, I would have done so much differently. But
Yeah.
here I am with the career I chose, ended on, and it's like, oh, not that I'm stuck. It's also just that I've got a lot put into directions now that are harder to shift around and
Yeah.
change. But
Well, they call that like a path dependency, right? Like you end
yeah,
up, and that's one of the neat things about unpacking the history of money is like you start seeing all the path dependencies, right? Like what's funny is, a lot of these like origin stories, like whether you're talking about commodity theory or credit theory or, sovereign like chartal theory or whatever, you can kind of see like where they all sort of latch onto an idea. They go, oh, here's money. This makes money. But the problem is like the logics underneath it go like way further back, and everybody seems to know this. Like it's not a mystery to anybody except for the economists that just kind of keep like they're like, yep, this is it. This is all. This explains money. Let's go. But when you get away from that idea, like right now, if you go and talk about Mesopotamia and Mesopotamian tablets and Mesopotamian um, grain rations and all that kind of stuff, people go, "Oh yeah, money. That's money." But the commodity people go like, "Oh, it's money because they're trading commodities, right? Like silver and oil and grain, and so it's a commodity system." You go, but is it really? Like, I don't know if that's quite right. And the credit people, they all go, well, see, look, it's on a list, it's on a ledger, so it's credits and debts, so that makes see it's money. And you go, so you're saying that the second someone tracks something on a ledger, it's money? That doesn't quite make sense. And then the state people will come along and look at it and go, no, but there's an authority, it's the temple.
enforced. Yeah,
Yeah, and so yeah, exactly, they're charlatans, dude. But they go, oh, it's state, it's a state authority that's assigning what these values are, and it's a state authority that's managing it. So therefore, money is a chartal thing. It's all because of the state. And but then if you listen to someone like James C. Scott back in the day, he'd say, well, if you talk about a state during the time of Mesopotamia, you're talking about like maybe 25,000 people. Like out of the 2 million on the planet, 25,000 people grouped up around a fucking field somewhere and said, hey, we're an organization now. Like we're a state, quote unquote, right? And you go, is that really a state? Like, what are we talking about here? Like, I mean, yeah, I guess kind of, but is that like if I think of like a modern state, I go, oh, that's like Germany. That's like 50 million people organized around some document. It's not, just oh, here's a group of people hanging out together, right? So it gets really weird, man, because you start seeing all this different, like all the different ways all these different things interact, and you kind of come away from it like, man, society is like a complex bugger, dude. Like it's not something you just go,
yeah,
oh, well, we just got to do X, Y, Z, and that's going to fix everything. It's like, yeah, good luck
yeah.
with
And the
that.
ultimate, the meta frame of all of it, the framework of integrating all that together into the system at large, it feels like that kind of cage, or like you're stuck. There's no, this is not going to change. It's going to self-endure by hook or by crook. It shall continue, and the exit becomes more and more made to be difficult or spurned. And but then that feels like exactly what I want to do. And so, you know just working with Bitcoin is one practice towards escape, or having that foot out the door. But then it's like, okay, but seriously though, big for you, really, what are you going to do? Do you go whole hog and really do that? I've met people who apparently kind of do, but that's a different world. And then it's like, okay, bridging that for me personally, it's like, oh boy,
Yeah.
it's a lot. But um, yeah, anyway, I've been grappling with some of that. What it does is sort of reinforce in my mind all the ways in which like I could be kind of stuck. But then the commitment to, and it's like, no, okay, no, I really could do a lot of deliberate things to become quite sovereign and unstuck. But that would be, if it was just me, maybe I'd do that. When you have kids and family and entanglements and things, it's just a different formula. So,
Well, I mean, it's kind of like coming to grips with the world that we've created, right? And like, I don't know, like when I hear people talking about like the system's going to collapse or this or like it always gives me, and especially lately, it's given me more and more pause because I don't think people really grasp what they're saying when they say that kind of stuff, right? Like, I don't think they have quite put together all the pieces of like the enormity of that kind of thing. I was watching these African fighters on YouTube, like it surfaced in my feed somewhere. And these guys, like, they wrap up one hand and they just sit there and just try and clobber each other with one wrapped up hand, right? Like, and the thing that got me to watch the video was like some big tattooed like YouTuber guy from like Holland or something like that was challenged one of these guys to a fight, and he was huge, right? And the guy that he was facing off with was much smaller by comparison. But the smaller African fighter, fighting with just one hand, mind you, right? Like, I can't remember what the name of the fighting style is or the competition or whatever.
like one arm tied behind your back or something.
No. It's just one arm is wrapped up really well with like
Oh,
like a glove kind of thing, right? And the other hand is sort of free. And so they kind of do this kind of thing and they just throw these haymakers and they're just trying to clobber you, right, the whole time. And from what I can gather, it looks like as soon as your butt hits the ground, like as soon as you fall down, you kind of lost, right? Like so, but most of these guys get their bells rung, right? I mean, it's literally just like bing, whoop, boop, like they're doing face plants into the sand and stuff like that. But the reason that it was interesting to me is I was looking at this like structure, and these guys are just like, there's like these kind of buildings in the background. They got signs painted on them, and it's all just this very hard scrabble kind of existence. Like they're tin sheds in the back, and it's just like this sand pit basically that's ringed by a bunch of sand bags. Like it's and this looks like the most dirt poor kind of arrangement you could imagine. But there's hundreds of people sitting around watching this, and there's all these guys just like fighting for honor, glory, reward. I don't know what, they just don't mind getting concussed. I don't know, but they're when I look at that and I go, these are very sturdy human beings, right? Like I don't think there are very many Western men that could walk into that ring and survive. Not only because they couldn't survive just the combat itself, but the environment they'd have to exist in would be like, oh, well, I got to go back to my shed that's full of flies and got a dirt floor, and then I'm going to go take a dump in the hole out back, and then I'm going to go cook over an open fire my little bag of beans and boiled rice that is shot through with weevils, and like it's just, you go, man, that. But there are like millions of people like that are existing in exactly those conditions. More than half the planet exists kind of like that. And even some people here in the United States kind of exist like that, right? So you go, oh, well, society's going to collapse. I go, and I'm going to be fine because I have Bitcoin. It's like, do you know what that doesn't mean? Like you get to go hop in your Humvee and then go drive to the store still, and you just happen to have Bitcoin. It means all that goes away, and you're going back to taking a dump in a hole, dude, because the sewer doesn't work anymore, and electricity doesn't work anymore, and like all these, like, and I go, how many of you can realistically survive that encounter? I don't know very many people that can. I'm not saying they don't exist. I'm just saying like that's going to be a steep learning curve. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I feel like, okay, it's not collapse, but it's a kind of hard change where there's no middle class anymore. Everyone's poor, and people may even be in their own way doing okay, but life is not what it was. And like we're maybe like navigating life okay, but things that used to be terrible are just kind of like, you you're not even coping, you're just kind of adjusted. And that itself, I think there'd be just a lot of walking zombie, you know, when I think of ontological shock, what it would hit with people is with the comforts that we have now. I had to look up ontological shock. Um, Here it is. Did it go up? No, here it is. Yeah, it was sort of like state of profound disorientation and existential distress that occurs when an individual's fundamental, deeply held beliefs about the nature of reality, existence, or self are suddenly shattered by new information or direct experience. A disruption of fundamental axioms leaves a person feeling exposed to the unknown, challenging their capacity to make sense of the world. I feel like a transition in that regard for a whole bunch of people, even as like it's not like existentially risky to the survival of our species. It's more of just like a lifestyle shock that a lot of people would just, I mean, you look at what COVID broke in people to this day, there would be people that just would feel that loss and never recover. They would be, I mean, I like, I know people who, in the face of a big shift of like, hey, we can remain okay. We just live life very differently in this way. And they'd be like, just kill me. Uh, they would, they'd get depressed. They wouldn't get out of bed. They'd be like, what's life worth living for? All these things. And it'd be like, you just got to get up and do something else. Go do that. Shock alone, we are so soft. We're so very soft right now. And in other countries, they're like, what is wrong with you people? Like, saddle up. You're feeling down, saddle up.
Yeah,
And we'd be like, it'd be like this malaise of ennui of just like, what, reminiscing over a lost empire. Like the empire fades and you just feel that lost empire for forever. I don't know. Be like, oh, time to cope harder. I don't know.
Well, that's one of the more interesting things about it, right? Is like when you talk about empires of old, you know, whether it's like the Persians or the Romans or, you know, any of those kind of things, the way those things collapsed was very different than, say, the way the colonial empires collapsed, which I think is very different than the way the American empire will crumble if it does. Because a lot of it has to do with the amount of complexity that is baked in, right? Like Rome started to falter because they had limits on what kind of arrangements they could make with their money, right? Like they hadn't quite figured out like mass taxation yet, like in any meaningful sense. They hadn't figured out things like mass mobilization. They hadn't figured out things like mass legibility. They, you know, so it was a very patchwork kind of method of rule that relied on some very sort of basic instruments like coins and spears. You know, like there wasn't like what we have today. And that's what makes Europe so interesting is once Rome fragmented and once it fell apart as an empire that was sort of providing this apparatus, this sense of stability, and it did so for a long, long time, what emerged from that wasn't like collapse, right? Like people go, oh, Rome collapsed and then Europe went into the Dark Ages. Like, no, not quite, right? Like what it did was it kind of shattered into local strongholds, right? Like local rule. But all those underlying logics didn't just disappear. They just kind of got scattered through a bunch of different institutions. But when you have like this fractured sort of thing, it opens up all these avenues to like, hey, well, we need to move value. We need to move things around. We need to coordinate obligations. We need to coordinate claims. We need to do all these different things. Let's layer some complexity in here to make that possible. And it's during the European development from from Rome receding, you start seeing things like complex debt instruments and sovereign debt finance and all that kind of stuff starts emerging, but it's under very discrete conditions, right? But they're all rooted in the same sort of logic that drove from Mesopotamia into empire into the colonial period. And so they end up projecting all this stuff back out. But what we've got now is like after that system started to fade, we got a new system, right? And the new system is predicated on the dollar, and it's predicated on a relatively uniform currency globally, right? Like that is the reserve currency of the world still,
For a little while.
Well, it is. I mean, it's not, we can't say how long it's going to be that way, but when you talk about transitioning away from that, you go, well, how much downside is that if you're China and you go, well, we're going to be the reserve currency? You go, well, yeah, but what happens in the shift? Like, how much do you lose trying to shift that way? What risk do you take on by trying to shift that way? What if it doesn't work? What if you don't manage to cement that? What if you end up in a much weaker position because you tried? Like, so it, when people start going like, oh, well, the dollar's going to collapse, I go, but well, when? Just if you can just tell me exactly when that's going to happen, I'll start preparing for it. But I've been hearing people say that since 1971. So when is it exactly? And no one has an answer. But part of the problem is no one understands what money is. So you go, well, you guys are talking about things in a very vague sense, and you're talking across very different levels and different registers of understanding, and you're concluding things based on a very muddy understanding of the underlying dynamics altogether. So I go, well, how about you guys just define money first, and then we'll talk about what it looks like when it collapses, because right now you don't even know what money is, let alone what happens when it fades or changes or becomes a new form or anything like that, if that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, it seems monetarily it's shifting from a more of a unipolar world reserve dollar oriented thing to a multipolar situation. And China and Russia and others are shoring things up to be an opposite large face of that, multipolar world. Iran is starting to take, they're letting ships through on Bitcoin payments through Hormuz. And there's so these little cracks of things. You can say, oh, that's small, but like $1 per barrel that goes through there, it priced in dollars, call it $1 per barrel to get through Hormuz right now. And they'll take Bitcoin and the yuan, or I don't know, whatever, but not the dollar. And Iran has kind of drawn a line. These are our terms. And the U.S. is grappling with that, framing it as like, oh, see, we have victory in the fact that we're negotiating again. And it's like, okay, really? You like those terms? Like take the loss and call it a win? And or do you commit the 50,000 troops you have prepped to go on? It's like what I see is kind of like we're kind of at this inflection point where there's all this resource and even like troops. I mean, they've got 2,500 Marines and some paratroopers, like another 4,000 paratroopers, and then a whole bunch of other ready boots to do something. And it's like, they have the courage to really commit to what you would call a war? Or are they going to reel all that back and say, okay, we all win, we're fine, as whatever, Israel could continue popping off wherever they want, Beirut and elsewhere, and as they get rocketed, I don't know. I see things popping a little bit where the dollar is not the thing, and we can't just change Iran. Iran remains. So, yeah.
But I mean, when people start talking about that multipolar world, I go, well, I mean, it kind of already is. Like China is already a thing. Russia is not a thing at all. Like they don't even factor in any of this shit. Like they are so weakened. Aside from the fact they carry nukes and they have some oil, like they're basically like they don't even show up at the table. Like no one gives a shit what Russia's doing, right? Obviously, because like it's faded from public view. So, and then when you start talking about Brazil, I mean, like if you talk about all these other alternatives to the dollar, you go, well, what do their internal structures look like? Oh, they're super fucking tenuous, right? Like these things are deeply, deeply strained internally. They're not like this sound robust. Like the thing that made the United States the reserve currency was the fact that like everybody blew themselves up. Like they blew up all their shit, right? Like they went, hey, we're going to fight. Yay. Okay. It's for honor and country. And we have a pact and blah, blah, blah. And then they just flattened their entire apparatus of everything that they could do. So when they're looking around, they go, hey, we kind of liked the way that thing was running because us elites did really well when we were just like extracting shit from Africa and we were extracting shit from South America. And we were just getting stuff. And all of our lives were getting a lot better. And then, we hanging on to some very old ideas, we went and, started a fight with each other. And oopsie daisy, we just like literally fractured everything that we built for the last 100 years. That's not great. Well, who still has some structure to keep that game going? Oh, the US. Like nothing happened to them. They got all the stuff. In fact, we put all our gold over there, right? So when you look at where the United States and the US dollar emerged from, it was from a position of overwhelming strength. It wasn't like the US was deeply fractured and had all these problems and was all this sort of like, the population was at unrest and there's deep political problems and, like all these problems with the money and how it all worked. It was like, no, they've got all the things. Like, yeah, they got some debt right now from the war, but they have like 90% of the gold sitting in their vaults already. They have all
maybe.
Well, at the time they did,
Yeah.
And they have all the productive capacity. Right now, you look at China and you go, well, they've got productive capacity, but they've got like an internal debt structure that is critically flawed right now. And there's no clear way for them to resolve that. So you go, well, how much authority are they projecting? How much force do they have behind that? So they're building out military capacity. They're building out debt structures into the third world and things like that. But you go, is that the same as the United States at the end of World War II? It's not even close, dude. It's not even in the neighborhood. You look at Russia and you go, well, what does Russia have? It's got a tattered empire that they've been trying to cobble together and hold together, and wrestle away from mob rule in the collapse of the Soviet Union. So you go, well, how much power can they exert on the world economy? Almost none. Like they don't have any capacity to extend any of that influence anywhere. They can't even extend that influence into the country right next door. So like you go, how are they going to project that down to Africa or down to the Middle East or down, like all they do is they just kind of put little nudges here and there, right? In Brazil, you go, look at the internal dynamics of Brazil and their debt structure and everything. You go, how's that going to? And then South Africa, good luck with that, dude. That's a communist country that's like completely fractured internally and has no productive capacity whatsoever. They got a gold mine. So those are going to form the foundation of like this new modern economy. Like, good luck with that. Go look at India and go, well, how robust is their infrastructure? Oh, it's a complete fucking disaster. Half the country still shits in the fucking backyard. Like, what are we, like, how is that going to challenge dollar hegemony? I don't see it, man. Like, I don't.
Well, and the U.S. has all this power projection and the technology, the secret technology, the reverse engineered, who knows what deep state technology. Like we have all these things, and yet how do we maintain that short of totally debasing our currency to maintain it? There was they can't afford to just feed this standing army. In Jeff Booth's book, the Price of Tomorrow, and I had to look at it. He had broken down. I had to write things down. So like, basically, like in my mind, the U.S. has like 4 options. Comparing it to like after World War II, like we were hugely in debt, but then we built up a budget surplus and paid things off and kind of got rebased better again. I don't think we can do that now. So it's like we have to. There has to be austerity where they just spend less and pay off the debt. Not going to happen. Go ahead.
Well, like when you say that, I go, what makes you think that is sort of what immediately pops to mind. Like, what makes you think we have to pay any of this shit off?
Well, like to pay people to have a job in the military. Like, why would you be in the military if you stop getting paid, I guess?
But that has nothing to do with paying off the debt and austerity, and it has nothing to do with any of that stuff. Like,
you keep paying them. You can only pay them if you print the money. Mm-hmm. So you print money. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can print money. So
Right.
and so in the four things, there's basically like, um, uh, oops. Okay, so there's theoretically there's austerity, there's a bankruptcy, jubilee, something which I don't see happening. There's transfers of wealth with huge taxation and UBI and theft, or there's printing money, quantitative easing. So they're going to pick door number four. They're going to print money. So you can print the money, and so yeah, you can maintain this on basically a higher and higher rate of this vapor. And so then what you see happening, we basically like, okay, yeah, we're churning the numbers, but that number starts to mean less and less and far less to everyone involved in that. Like, okay, yeah, we're getting paid in wheelbarrows of garbage. I don't know.
Well, but I mean that kind of traces back to things like if you're talking about a limited sphere of influence, like if you're Germany, Weimar Republic, and they start printing tons of money, what happens? Well, they can't service debts, but the arrangement there was very different than the arrangement that the United States currently occupies in the world. So to compare like Zimbabwe or Germany or something like that to the United States or Lebanon or wherever you go, those aren't the same thing, right? That's like it's like comparing a 5-year-old child to an adult male. You go, well, but they're both humans. You go, yeah, but their capacities and their capabilities are vastly different. Like that's not if you say, well, the adult male is going to be rendered to the level of a 5-year-old just because external things. You go, I don't think that carries weight. And one of the things the MMT people are always talking about is like, well, there is no bankruptcy if you're a sovereign that issues your own currency. That can't happen. Like, so of that list, you go, well, maybe we go bankrupt. I go, it can't happen because how do you go bankrupt if you can print your own money? Like that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, they won't do that.
Well, there isn't no do it. There's no possibility of it happening. Like, how do you go bankrupt if you go, well, we just paid our debt. How? Well, we made this Electrum coin that we said is worth $1 trillion, so we paid the debt. Ta-da! Like you go, we're not in debt anymore. So when people talk about like the United States going bankrupt, they go, that's a nonsensical position to take. So in that list of four possibilities, you can already remove one possibility just from the realm of even consideration, right? Yeah, exactly. But I mean, it's sort of interesting in that it's really hard to unpack like what is actually valuable to us, right? And how it got here. And so when it's like, well, they're going to print money. Yeah, probably. Your purchasing power is going to go down, probably. But your purchasing power is rooted in a bunch of ideas about what you should be allowed to buy with your purchasing power to begin with, right? Which doesn't necessarily align with the reality of like what your actual contribution to the world is or where you happen to be born. It makes it so you have all this amazing purchasing power where you can buy cars and houses and free flowing water and electricity, where some other guy living in sub-Saharan Africa doesn't have access to any of that crap. And you go, well, but I deserve it. Why? Because I would just happen to be born in the United States of America, and that guy doesn't deserve it because he just happened to be born in sub-Saharan Africa. You go, that kind of doesn't make sense either, does it? I mean, you see what I'm getting at? So it's like when people are talking about these structures and then they're talking about what's happening to me locally and what's happening to my purchasing power and et cetera, you go, well, all true locally, but that doesn't necessarily mean that what's happening to you is like some horrible thing. Maybe it's a it's a restructuring of things where it's
Yeah.
becoming more fair. I don't know, like, but it's really hard to say like what's fair because what we have is not necessarily fair. Like we waste enough food just in the United States to feed the entire world. Is that fair? Doesn't sound like it, but I still want my bell peppers to look the same, so I don't care. Like I don't care the rest of the world is starving because my vegetables are uniform in appearance. Like it.
Right.
My clothes, I have a huge selection of clothes that 90% of is wasted and goes down to Africa to be dumped. But I deserve that. That's fair. And I go, you start getting into some pretty sticky stuff. We're talking about the ontology of just being an American or being a world citizen or being part of the world or something like that. You go, yeah,
Yeah, there's no collapse, no bankruptcy, just massive debasement. And then that transition to many is going to be more than, I got to do something different then, I guess. There's going to be massive ontological shock. It'll be like walking zombies of like, it'll feel to them like collapse. And do they understand? No, this continues. So do you choose to live or do you choose to give up and what? Stop eating? So,
Well, I mean,
um,
if you get to that kind of existential level, like someone's going to come along and capitalize on that, right? Like the idea that everyone's just going to throw up their hands and just go, well, I guess the world's over now. Like someone's going to come along with a solution, 100%. That solution will probably be stupid. That solution won't fix everything, but someone's going to come along and repurpose things and make it so it feels like there's hope for the future, because that's where power comes from. You go, hey, this is all a mess now. Someone's going to come along and say, hey, I can fix the mess. Like 100%.
that'll be socialism, communism, free stuff. Vote for me, free stuff. I've got a mission. Oh, what's that mission cost? Printed money. Lots of printed money. Social Security is gone in 6 years or less. What's the solution? Well, we're going to print more money.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but that's that's like projecting the past onto the future, right? You go, well, that might have happened in the past. That might happen again. I can't say it won't happen, but to when we start prognosticating about what might be coming, I think we run into like some huge risk, because we don't really know what capacity for creativity human beings possess, and maybe someone comes along and goes, hey, if we just tinker with a couple of things, we can make it so it's a lot more fair for everybody and we'll all do a lot better, right?
Yeah.
And if that comes to the fore, or if there is, like there's unlimited ways that the world can be reshaped that don't necessarily involve collapse into strongman into communism, right? Because that has already been played out and it didn't work out very well. And I think most people recognize that. They kind of go, even the people that are staunch defenders have to, on some level, either they're just ideologues and they just hang on to ideas, or they are people that can thoughtfully reflect on something and go, yeah, well, the fact that all those people starved was probably not great. And there's probably a better way to fix this than going back down that path. But you have ideologues on the other side that say we have to get back to like sound money, and I go, you don't even know what the hell that means. Like, so preaching that is sort of like you're just as much of an ideologue just on the other side of the fucking thing. But what sound money, or at least the ideology of sound money, brings is like, okay, we favor creditors above everybody else and everybody else suffers. But you go, how is that a better outcome than like, well, we're going to favor, the common man and everyone else? Yeah, well, exactly right. Someone will come along with a solution. So our job is to be better informed. So when someone comes along with that solution, we can kind of pick it apart at the level it belongs, not from some hypothetical, theoretical idea of what we think maybe, because we're used to that idea, if that makes sense.
Yeah, what I what I see in people in my mainstream fiat circles day to day, I guess maybe there's kind of three main categories of uh, you know, coworkers, family, friends, and customers, I'll say, and
Clients.
clients. And it falls in, and so for a lot of people, for what I see, how the way I see them grappling with just talking about it, or what could be like change coming, what does that mean? For a slice of them, I see that being drugs, alcohol, mental illness, death, or paralysis, deer in the headlights, just uh like I'm lost. I'm lost. Everything like what for many people in the world would be, well, pivot, change, hustle, survive, think about it, change, navigate. For a lot of people that I know, it's just like lost, like complete paralysis. Can't handle the paradigm. It's so far beyond like everything that we ever had from 70s, 80s, 90s, the aughts. It's just wholly different and it could feel very just different.
Yeah.
Like, okay, we're still getting paid, but for what? Or like, I don't know, like my kids will never have a house ever. They will never. House being what we think a house is.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's just I see a lot of paralysis and rupture, I guess, is what I would see. And even as it's simply a transition, it's not collapse, it's not bankruptcy, it's a transition. I just see people not handling that well because the empire is not what you thought it was.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, that's sort of the funny thing about it is we've already watched major transitions happen. Like I was saying last week, like we've already lived through massive transitions, and no one collapsed. I mean, there's some people on the margins probably, but like we also have to take into account like the boomers are all about to die, right? Like they are the big property holders of the United States right now, and they're all about to pass into, oblivion. And when they do, they free up a lot of resources, tons. So just right there, like you go, well, there's just one wrinkle. And it's a huge wrinkle. It's like, 40 million people, 50 million people or something like that are going to be dying soon in the next 5 to 10 years. What happens to all their wealth and resources? Well, it doesn't just get absorbed by the state, it gets absorbed by next of kin and inherited and so on and so forth. So, like right now, if you think about like all the middle class families that are kind of struggling, all of a sudden they get an injection of like 750,000 each just from death. You go, well, what happened to the collapse? Well, we got to punt on that huge because like we don't have to pay out nearly as much in Social Security anymore. We don't have to pay out nearly as like all this wealth got transferred from one generation to the next, and that next generation is probably going to handle that wealth differently than the boomers did, and they might trickle that down to their kids, so their kids can have some footing to stand on because right now everybody can recognize the kids are struggling. So instead of like Gen Xers and millennials, like just going, yeah, I've got all this money now, and being like greedy sociopathic boomers about it, they start going, oh, I need to distribute this down because I'm doing okay-ish, but my kids are really struggling, so I need to help them come up.
Mm-hmm.
And so if that happens, which just you don't need to stretch your imagination to go, hey, do you think boomers are going to start dying in mass pretty soon here? Like that's not like some crazy theoretical, like, oh my God, well, in order for boomers to start dying, that means that like aliens have invaded. It's like, no, they're just getting older and they're dying, right? Like that's going to happen. And that wealth transfer is going to occur. So what happens to the collapse? What happens to the bankruptcy? What happens to the tectonic shift where everyone's walking around as a zombie? Well, wealth just got redistributed en masse pretty much in a very short wave. And a lot of the problems that we're facing right now just kind of evaporated with that. So what new problems are going to come up that we're going to have to deal with because of that? Well, no one's even talking about it because they're so focused on what the immediate problem that they see, like, oh my God, money printing and everything's falling apart. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
what I could see, go ahead.
No, finish. Please, I was done.
What the stereotype kind of the mentality we often hang on, how boomers are, what boomers are like. I see more and more of some of that just adopted thinking in Gen X in a way, and then what could hit Gen X as we age is that sense of, well, you put in your career, you're going to have Social Security, you're going to have your, say, pension or 401k, and you feel like there's a cushion for me. And then when that cushion is either gone or worth very little, I see, Gen Xers basically grappling like boomers of like, I put in my time, where's mine? And it's like, well, it's not there exactly the way you presumed. And so I can see Gen Xers grappling with stuff where, okay, so they get variously inheritance stuff from boomers, and that provides some cushion. But they will still have to, make these adjustments of like, oh, gee, I can't retire like the boomers did. I realize, it'd be different.
Well, I mean, there's, like boomers are not a monolithic thing, right? But
Yeah.
And there are boomers that are struggling right now, and there are boomers that are doing really well, and there are boomers that are sort of in between, and there are boomers that are, you know, like cautious with their money and all that kind of stuff. But what I'm kind of getting at more is like the dynamics that are unfolding right before us. It just depends on how wide of a lens you're looking at them from, right? If you look at them from a very narrow lens about immediate problems on a very like high time preference scale, you go, oh my God, everything's falling apart. If you truly adopt the low time preference and you go, well, let's just see how things can play out here, there are all kinds of alternative outcomes that don't necessarily involve collapse, massive printing and, deflation or inflationary debt spirals and all this kind of stuff, because there is a very foreseeable wealth transfer coming. So you go, well, how does that impact all of those ideas and theories and fears and, and FUD and all that kind of stuff? Well, no one knows. No one knows what's going to happen when that massive wealth transfer happens, but it's coming. So it's probably going to have some impact. I can't imagine that's going to have no impact. Like right now, my parents are elderly and they own 4 properties. They're, or 5. I mean, they have a significant amount of wealth all tied up in the world somewhere, right? They're also restricting housing from other people being able to buy it. So when they pass on, if I'm still alive and I get access to that, or me and my siblings or whatever, whatever share of that distributional thing happens, you go, is my life going to get worse? Am I going to be struggling harder because, that massive wealth transfer just happened? I don't see how that makes my thing get. I kind of look around and go, well, that sounds like it's going to help me a bunch. Like, when do I face the collapse? Like, when does my personal, yeah, maybe my wages aren't worth as much, but hey, I just inherited like, $500,000 worth of shit. So
yeah, for some, it could be like, gosh, that's nice and all, but I can't afford the property taxes in this new situation where property taxes have to go way up, or who knows, I don't know, whatever. But or boomers had 1 or 2 houses and they had 3 or 4 kids, and so the kids are trying to divide up half of what they might have hoped for. But I don't know. Yeah, it's just,
that's what I'm getting at is like, you go, well, there's going to be a massive wealth transfer. There's going to be far fewer people drawing on Social Security. And in that transition, it's a perfect opportunity to go, hey, we need to restructure Social Security, right? Like, we need to make it access tighter. We need to do this. We need to do that. So we can make sure that it stays solvent moving forward. And so then, like, all these things that people have been fudding since 1965 or 1950 or 1945, all the things that people have been stressing about, worrying about, and this and that, and what are we going to do? And oh my God, it's a collapse. The end is nigh, and the sky is falling, and oh my God, we need to prepare and go dig a pit in the backyard and bury all your gold and make sure you have 10 years worth of canned food and all this crazy shit. And then 10 years from now, they just go, oh, they just kind of worked all that out. Huh. Well, boy, I was really worried about that for a while, but kind of just worked. Huh. What happened to the world? Nothing really. I mean, yeah, there's some people struggling, but people have always struggled, and man, it's just kind of the same, like nothing really happened. And that, I think, is almost more unsettling for people, is like, well, maybe the future is just going to be like mostly okay. Like there's nothing that you should really be stressing too much about, as long as you're not unhealthy and you're approaching it with your eyes open and just recognizing like, hey, yeah, they're probably going to have to print money because they print money every year. They have to, because they're just how the thing works now. So having assets makes sense, but like fretting about like what, yeah, exactly.
right. Utilitarian life for
Right.
sure.
Exactly. And so what you said, Johnny, I think is spot on, right? Because as those houses come back onto the market, entities like BlackRock and whatnot are going to be out there trying to scoop them up too. But so are a bunch of millennials, and so are a bunch of, I think Fannie and Freddie still have a ton of housing stock just artificially off the market right now because it would destabilize their internal finances too much. But also becomes a target for like a massive restructuring at that point. You go, well, now all these boomer houses are coming on the market and you got all that stock. We need to reset this somehow. We need to fix this system so, this younger cohort has access to affordable housing. And right now we can't just keep propping up prices endlessly because that causes all these other downstream problems. So let's tinker with that in a way that makes it so it works better. And meanwhile, if you're a Bitcoiner, you also have access to something that's protecting you from a lot of these potential dynamics that are unfolding. But but it's not going to, I don't think it's, or at least anymore, I don't think it's going to be something where you get to go like, hey, I get to be an island of my own. I'm just king of my own domain. I think it becomes more like it's just one tool among many that you can use to maintain some friction, maintain some illegibility to the system, maintain some flexibility within the system, and help buttress some of the ups and downs that are inevitably going to come because they always do. But the idea that the whole thing just evaporates tomorrow or it's all going to fall apart or this and that, I just go, I think that underappreciates the human capacity for ingenuity. I think it underappreciates the capacity for this system, the way we've designed it and built it, to be able to absorb that kind of stuff, because we just watched it. I've watched it in real time absorb all kinds of crazy shit, and it's still going,
Well, can you envision a transition being more and more exponential, where as the spin cycle on what's happening with inflation and all that becoming hyperinflation, where like the transition from the penny store to the dime store took a century, and then the dime store to the dollar store took some decades, and like faster and faster and faster, like decade by decade, divide your money by 10. Like in hyperinflation, all of a sudden things do start to feel desperate very quickly.
Well, but who traditionally absorbs the hyperinflation?
The middle class, I'd say.
Well, in what example does that? Because as I look around, I go, well, hyperinflationary episodes in like Rome are very different than what happened in Weimar Republic, which is very different than what happened in Zimbabwe and Argentina. And then if you're talking about the global reserve currency, you go, well, what does hyperinflation look like here? Like Britain faced all kinds of inflationary pressures during the classical gold standard. So what they did is they just shunted all that inflation off to India and their peripheral colonial holdings, right? They go, oh, well, you guys just eat this. Like we're going to maintain parity. You guys suck up the pain. So our domestic population endures a little bit, but the periphery eats all of it, right? And that's kind of the way the United States has been running. So you go, oh, we got this hyperinflationary thing. The entire world still prices in dollars. So if you're a commodity exporting nation, what happens? You get crushed. So your option is to try and pivot to China, but you're going to get hammer fucked in the process. And you can start doing other things. So what are your options as a debtor periphery nation? You go, well, either you just keep getting kicked in the nuts or you start protecting your balance sheet somehow. What's a way to do that? Well, every time we try and buy up a bunch of gold, we get hammer fucked, but we can just mine Bitcoin. Yeah, that's kind of a good idea. Why don't we do that? Okay. So instead of so you end up with like, you can do the same thing as a middle-class person in the United States. You can help absorb some of that inflationary pressure that's going to be borne domestically. But the vast majority of the inflationary pressure that we face goes externally. That gets borne by commodity nations and countries that don't have a choice in the matter in terms of what they use, how they settle, where they sell. And I think what's more likely to happen is as those pressures multiply, what you're going to start seeing is more multinationals taking over those industries in the periphery nations, and then exporting their costs outward to the poor people of those countries, right? So you go, what happens to the people in the United States? Almost nothing. Like, yeah, our groceries keep getting expensive, but they've been getting more expensive since 1962. So how does that, like, everyone just kind of assumes it now. They go, things are a little more expensive now than they were. Like COVID, that shock apparent, but I don't know, dude. Like,
it feels to me like like at best, it's like we used to take a vacation or two a year, and now we don't take vacations because that goes just to food.
Right.
We still have a decent life, but we don't go on vacation anymore.
Right. But I mean, but that's a kind of a spoiled way to look at the world, right? Like there are people right now that are starving, and you're going like, well, but we used to go to Disneyland twice a year. Now we only go to Disneyland once. The system is so unfair. You go like, what are you talking about, dude? Like this system is crushing people globally, like absolutely like devastating their lives. It is imposing starvation and it is imposing all sorts of crazy like dictatorial regimes, and it's imposing all sorts of constraints on people that aren't you, and your constraints are like, well, my celery costs a lot more and my shoes are more expensive, and golly gee, isn't that unfair? And it's like, yeah, I mean, as a local problem, I can see why that would be upsetting, but like when you're talking about like cope harder, it's like, come on, dude, like cope harder, man. Like
I know I can perpetually cope like unbelievable. I'm like, in a way, personally, I'm fine. Like if you boil it down, despite all the what ifs and hopes and plans and ideas and how do I do best, honestly, I'm fine. It's but tell that to my wife, like the ontological shock of not having the same lifestyle, if you will, for her and like many people, it'd just be like, oh my God, like everything's lost. And it would be collapsed to them, which for many would be like, we're fine, like cope harder. Even as all of that to me is representative of absolute criminal theft,
right.
Absolute human slavery compared to what could have been, what should be. It's just straight up anti-human crimes against humanity is how I look at it. Because I hate the whole system. I'm so enraged at the system. It's not to say, oh, I'm spoiled, I can't go on vacation. It's like, how in the hell is life not great but for a complete fucking rigged criminal, warfaring criminal system, a mob? But for the mob, we really should be fine, but you're not. So cope. You'll be fine. Cope.
Well,
I'm like, yes, but it's just so criminal.
Well, but that applies a lot of things. It's like, well, I should get all the benefits of this criminal enterprise, but I just don't want to have to look at all the problems that the criminal enterprise causes, right? And that is an position to take, or you can look at that and go, okay, well, I'm planting my flag here. I say this is very, very unfair to, it's a criminal enterprise. I go, well, that criminal enterprise gave you water that you can just go get from the tap and drink without dying or getting dysentery. That criminal enterprise gave you a Tesla. That criminal enterprise gave us this communication technology. That criminal enterprise gave us roads and houses that we apparently can't afford anymore, and gave us higher education, gave us literacy, numeracy, gave us pretty decent health if we just stop eating all the junk food. I mean, so if you look at it and you go, this criminal enterprise is just take, and you go, but is it, right? Like, not saying that it's not unfair.
Oh, we're paying for it. I mean, it's like, here's some basic infrastructure. You should be happy with that. Meanwhile, we took everything. We took everything from you, but we'll give you roads and the water that you still also pay for, depending on your use. And
well, but that's
which is also a local utility district that we, but anyway, yeah.
But you're not bearing those costs. Like, you do not pay what all this shit cost. You've never had to pay what this stuff really fucking costs. Like, not even close.
All those taxes, road taxes, water taxes, energy bills. I get the bill.
We were just talking about inflation. Where does all that inflation go? It goes to commodity producing nations. So like, we get to export inflation, we get stuff back. We export our inflation, we get cheap stuff from overseas. That makes up all of the infrastructure that you're talking about. So when you go, oh, well, I'm paying for it in taxes. I go, well, yeah, but you don't have to deal with the hidden tax that goes to the rest of the world because they accept our dollars. Like, all of that tax gets shunted off to them. you have to pay some of it, like a fraction of what's really getting born, where those costs are really being felt, because like all these peripheral nations are poor for a reason. And it's not because they don't have resources. It's not because they don't have the ability to, it's because all their stuff gets sold to us for dirt cheap, and we keep inflating dollars. So they keep ending up chasing, like they're the ones that are really bearing the cost of inflation far more than we are. And that's been true since the end of World War II. That's been true since the beginning of the colonial era. But I mean, it literally goes back to the beginning of the colonial era. Like all those costs that you say, I'm paying for it, you go, well, you're paying a fraction. And so you haven't really felt the true force of like what it would actually cost to build that infrastructure. You haven't ever really dealt with the full force of what it would cost to build all this just from domestic production, because it would be a very different world, and the world would not look the way it does right now, but for our ability to export inflation. So
Yeah.
that's a, I don't know if that.
Yeah. And I get that. And then I also can't help but think that as I pay taxes, that half of it is just straight up fraud, waste, and abuse. Fraud, waste, and abuse is the lens that I start to see it through.
Well, I mean, it's a fair position, right? Like a lot of it does go to fraud, waste, and abuse. But all of that is still a fraction of what actually makes this whole system work. Like this system works because we sit at the pinnacle of a pyramid, of a monetary pyramid in the United States, where we get to export all of our pain, or at least most of our pain, outwards. So when it comes time to like, well, they're wasting and they're making fraud and this and that and the other thing, you go, well, if you cut off the ability to export inflation, like if the dollar collapsed, the adjustment internally is not going to be just like, oh, they're wasting money on fraud and abuse, to go, oh, we don't have anywhere near enough money to pay for any of this shit to keep going. It all collapses. It all falls apart because we don't have the ability to export our inflation anymore. So yeah, exactly right. Yeah. If you're in the third world, life sucks. The dollar standard. But if you're in America, you get, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Confessions of an Economic Hit Global Cabal.
Yeah. But we benefit from that cabal. We are first in line to get all those benefits. Like in terms of global wealth, we are an extraordinarily small group of human beings globally to just live in the United States or Western Europe. Like it's an extraordinary position of power. It's an extraordinary position of wealth. It's an extraordinary position of resource management and capture. It's an extraordinary position of resource coordination, and everyone else pays for it. So we're kind of living on the backs of everybody else, and then we're bitching about it in the meantime.
Yeah, I know. It's like where the fraud, waste, and abuse also intersects with the global equity of it all, which it's just not been it. I mean, yeah, we're very privileged, even as we can see that there's all this fraud, and it's just kind of like reconciling it all. It's just like, oh, but anyway, but there's no, I don't. So basically, there's no voting harder, there's no printing harder, there's no fix to it. It's just like, okay, so what? And that's where what I've been managing, grappling with in terms of ontological shock is like, okay, so then which way forward? But I've been thinking about a lot of things there.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, at the end of the day, like, as I keep kind of coming back to it, go just walk outside and take a look around and tell me how bad things are for you. And then, kind of try and keep some of this shit in perspective. It doesn't mean just like go around as a Pollyanna and just go, everything's great, I just love the world, oh, peace and kumbaya, right? Like, but you also, there has to be some sort of adult moment in your life where you kind of look around and go, I got it pretty good, man. Like,
right.
It may not be like ideal for me, but like I might not be getting all the same sort of material comforts that my boomer parents did. But I also get a lot more like interesting things than my boomer parents had. Like they still had to drive around in cars that, like, if you got in a car crash, you're probably gonna get mangled or killed, right? You're like, your car doesn't do that. We're getting to a place where your car won't even crash anymore. So it's like,
yeah,
that's kind of just that one thing is kind of a big deal. Your boomer parents or my boomer parents, they still struggle just to figure out how to do this shit, but we can just take it for granted, right?
yeah.
And our kids coming up behind us are going to be like dealing with this stuff like on a whole different level. So you go, what does that do for productivity? What does that do for, you know, the global distribution of equity and this and that and wealth and how it all gets ferried about and who comes up with what idea and this, that, and the other thing? I go, well, at the core of all that, there is one thing, Bitcoin, that you should probably pay attention to because it's different. I mean, of all these things that we've talked about today, inflation and printing money and how people exert force and pressure other nations and internal dynamics and debt structures and all this kind of stuff, you go, I don't think there's a single human being on earth that could put all that into perspective and then make a coherent argument about what should or should not happen. What I can say is there's a very clear shift in the entire global apparatus that is Bitcoin. Very, very, very different than everything that's ever come before it. And so if I were a gambling man, which apparently I am, I look at that and go, well, that's probably something I should put some attention and focus on. It might not be the savior of the world. It might not be the global reserve currency. It might not collapse fiat and turn into this egalitarian utopia where everything works out amazingly well. What I can say is, like, in terms of everything else that I can possibly imagine right now, which is grossly complex, grossly layered, deeply textured, deeply affected by all kinds of different interactions. And like it would be impossible to unpack this in any granularity and make sense of it. But I can say there's something that's standing out like a great big orange beacon that goes, hey, this is different. Maybe, just maybe, put some attention and energy and focus into that. I would, my only caution is like, don't assume that this is going to be the new thing, but definitely treat it as like, this is a new thing. And it's something that's worth paying attention to,
More than money. It's a kind of property, impervious. I think I'd mentioned before, thinking of Johnny's comment here, it's like, I'll think of like my hard day or a bad day, and it's the kind of day that for me, it's like, and for many, many people in the world, it would be like a dream to be in that kind of a situation, to have that kind of a bad day.
Yeah.
But
dude, I mean, like, have you seen that video of that kid in the Congo? Like, there's 4 guys who were working in a Congolese, like, I can't remember what kind of mine it was. It was one of the critical components of the battery that powers your Tesla. But anyway, the tunnel collapsed. And so there's like 4 guys just like scooping dirt out and grabbing people by the feet and yanking them out of the thing. And you go, that's a bad day for that guy at work. And it's actually a good day because he lived, right? They yanked all those guys out despite the collapse and being buried alive. Like, that's terrifying. And you go, and if you were sitting around a dinner table with that guy and going, man, my day to day, oh my God, I had to walk into the HR manager's office and we had to talk for 25 minutes about blah, 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 blah. And that guy's like, well, I got buried alive.
I'm still alive. That's a good day.
Yeah. And I got paid $2 for the effort and they still haven't paid me. And my shoes are made out of recycled tires. And my clothes are basically like throwaways that you guys threw away 20 years ago, and I still haven't been able to afford a way to replace it. I had a great day, and you're complaining about what exactly? How much did you get paid for that meeting? Oh, $800? I don't see $800 in a year of digging in a pit with my bare hands and some cobbled together tool that I made with a rock and a stick and some rope, just so I can make $400 that entire year. And I'm still hungry at the end of that. And oh, by the way, I'm going to go to this competition later on where I'm going to try and knock some guy out with my glove. Right? Like, you go, but I'm, my life is great because I can eat. And, so when we sit back and go, oh my God, my world's like, groceries got so expensive this week. I could only buy 1 bag of ho-hos and Twinkies and ding-dongs. And I used to get 2 bags of ho-hos and Twinkies and ding-dongs. Isn't that terrible? Oh my God. Oh my God. And then the electricity went out for 5 minutes. Oh my God. It was so like, I couldn't check my email. Oh, it's like, dude, really? Like, come on, man. A little perspective, maybe. Cobalt. Yeah. Yes, that was it, Johnny.
Cobalt mine. Yeah, perhaps part of the human condition is that, we almost thrive under persevering through adversity. And so when you're under adversity and you survive and thrive, and you have you feel that community, a sense of spirituality, and a protectorship by a God, and the things that are all like almost like innate to feeling like you're existing with purpose and reason, and life is what it is, versus surrounded by comfort and drifting into the fact that most men lead lives of quiet desperation
Yeah,
because you're just kind of like, oh, all the little things are hard. We define our lives by our suffering.
right.
um, yeah, I know, it's sort of like getting a grip, getting some perspective on it all. And anyway, yeah, I've been just sort of thinking through the nature of all that lately.
Yeah.
So
Oh, rightfully so, man. I mean, like we said up top, like once you start pulling on that monetary thread, and especially when you go down the Bitcoin rabbit hole, it doesn't just lead to like, oh, money's a problem. Like it doesn't stop there. It starts going into like, well, what am I doing here? Why do I crave all this stuff? Why am I chasing this thing? Why am I doing this? Why am I doing that? And then all of a sudden you start that reorientation, that realignment that I talked about in my last book, right? And I think that's such a healthy outcome because, like, just like what we were talking about right now, you go like, well, there's a guy in a cobalt mine that is probably getting drunk that night and pretty stoked that he didn't die in the cobalt mine. Whereas meanwhile, I'm sitting here going like, oh my god, my Amazon cost $4 this time, and the last time I got Amazon for free. Like you kind of go, Netflix is so much more expensive now. Like, are you kidding me? That's your big problem right now. So, but what it does do when you start getting into that realignment, you start going, well, wait a minute. Do I really need all this shit? Do I really need another
right.
level of Netflix? Do I really need to get 40 new pairs of clothes, or can I just get a sturdy pair of clothes that's going to last? Do I really need to get a new fridge every year? Do I really need to get a new car all the time? Do I really need to participate in this whole consumer thing? And when you start stepping back from that, life gets a lot simpler, just almost automatically, because you're not so caught up in like the churn of the monetary logic that's you're currently encumbered by, right? And so if you get closer to like the type of conditions where the people that are struggling exist, and then you pad that out so it's comfortable for you to be in that range, then all of a sudden life is like easy, right? Like just like the cobalt miner, if he came here and was like, wait a minute, so all I got to do is go show up at a Taco Bell for 10 hours a week and I get the exact same amount of money I used to make in the cobalt mine 70 hours a week. Yes. That sounds awesome. Right? Like I'm all about that. I'll show up at Taco Bell 10 hours. That's it. And you're going to give me this much money? Fantastic. Amazing. So I'm not saying that it's like you're going to be able to live the same life and blah, 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 blah. But if you keep your level of comfort more proportionate to what most of the world is dealing with, then all of a sudden, like, life becomes a very easy game to play because you live amongst extraordinary wealth and extraordinary resources. Like most of this shit's free. And if you see some of those guys that are like the cheapest guy ever, and he's like squeezing out, ketchup packets, and he's like splitting his toilet paper in two and shit like that, you don't have to be kind of that crazy about it, but getting a little more minimal, or getting a little less like consumer oriented, getting a little more like production oriented, you go, those are huge shifts that you can do right now and protect you from 99% of the shit that you're worried about. Like your groceries get more expensive. Like go start a polycrop garden in your backyard. And guess what? You just printed money on your own just by like spending a little time figuring out what polycropping means, how to plant things together so they always produce food for you and they always produce useful things for you. And then from there you can go, oh, well, hey, like a lot of my food burden is gone. Neat. So now all I really have to do is go worry about how I'm going to pay for my ribeye. But now that that's only 1/10 of my budget, I've freed up all those other resources to do other things. So like it gets better just by placing yourself in a more realistic position of where you ought to be in the global economy rather than where you've been enjoying for your entire life, because you're going to go, well, I'm American, I deserve to have a new car every year because that's important because blah blah blah, like reasons, right? You go, well, but you can live a great life in this country if you just keep your expenses down.
Yeah. And it reframes your sense of value, the value of your time and your energy, and honing your crafts, stacking your your skill sets, creating value. What value are you doing? What are you doing with your time and energy? Um, so yeah. Well, we both kind of have some time constraints, I understand today a little bit. Oh, there is one article you might kind of enjoy that. Well, so meanwhile, New York Times is deciphering who Satoshi is.
Oh,
Um,
I'm sure they got that.
did you see that?
No, I don't care.
Yeah, it's entertaining. Also,
They come up with.
well, clearly Adam Back is Satoshi. I would say you would probably enjoy the read. It's a bit of a long one, but it's like, it's fun. It completely doesn't matter, and at the same time, it starts with a kind of conclusion and works its way back and then back forward again. So it's, it doesn't steel man all the cases, or it just ignores certain obvious things, but it paints a picture in a specific direction that
Oh,
you would enjoy, I would think. But just it's also, I don't
it's
know,
probably very.
People Magazine news.
Yeah, it always is. That's all the New York Times is good for now. Yeah, I agree with you, Johnny. I mean, I don't. If we step back, it doesn't mean our problems aren't real, right? Like if you are struggling to pay a bill, that doesn't you can't sit back and go, well, grandma's going to die this week because we couldn't pay the medical bill. Well, that's fine because some kid is digging a hole in the Congo. Like that's not, like that's not quite what I'm saying. Like we do have real problems, and they are, tangible, and we feel them, and we have to deal with them, and they have an emotional effect on us. And so it's not just to say nobody in America has problems or nobody in Europe has problems. Like we all do, and they're all human problems, right? But what I'm trying to really get at is like if you live amongst material abundance, like the natives used to do this when the colonists first started showing up in North America, the natives would look around and go like, hey, well, we can go hunt deer. Those big fat cows those Europeans have, those things are like really easy to hunt. Like they don't run. You don't have to chase them around. Like you could just like walk up on them and just kind of stick them in the neck, and then you got meat. So that's kind of cool. Let's go hunt I don't know why they keep them all fenced up like this. Like they're just there for the taking. Let's go hunt those, right? And that's sort of the difference. Like they didn't just change their life all of a sudden, but they recognized like, hey, here's material abundance. We can still live the way we're living. We can still be very comfortable living the way we're living. And now we have access to more stuff that is kind of like handy. So, and that's kind of what I'm talking about when I talk about minimalism in a robust economy is you kind of go, well, yeah, all these problems are real. If you're trying to keep up with everybody, then yeah, it's going to be a struggle because they're making it harder for you to keep up every year. But that's a very different thing than saying like it's becoming impossible to live. You go, well, it's becoming impossible to keep up with the Joneses, but it's still super easy to live in this world because like there's shit everywhere. You can eat for free for the next year if you're clever about it. And just most people aren't or won't, or because they want their brand of ho-hos rather than buying a bag of beans, right? So I don't know.
I
That's
don't know.
good. Spartacus. I'm Spartacus.
I'm Spider-Man. No, I'm Spider-Man.
Anyway,
Or basically what's happening, everybody's like, I'm not Spider-Man. I'm not Spider-Man. I'm not Spider-Man.
not me.
Not me. Not me. It's not me.
Well, I don't know. I'll have to read the New York Times thing. I'm sure it'll be.
It's, in one sense, it's well done. I mean, it is immersive quality research in a way, some proof of work in there.
Right.
Well, entertainingly interestingly written. Also kind of like, well, okay, so
and,
what?
Yeah.
And
can you prove it? No. Then
does like, yeah. So what? So
yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, it's just infotainment. Man, yeah. Well, what a week. I have more reading to do. I'm going to read the rest of your final proof work, and
hopefully
do some thinking, and probably mow the lawn and work on some stuff in the garage. So
yeah, you're not going to go dig for cobalt.
I'm so privileged. I helped my son build a birdhouse, and Little things like that, it's like, I cleaned my garage up a little bit, and as soon as there was working space and the tools were organized and I had some room and stuff, he was in there like getting boards out and tools and drawn lines just without telling me anything about anything. I'm just like, oh, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Now he's 12 and he goes, oh, I'm building a birdhouse. And I'm like, oh,
cool.
I had to make my bed and clean up my garage, and it opened up a world of time and energy and interest for my son. So
that's awesome.
Anyway, so we built a birdhouse and now he wants to build more stuff. And it's like, dude, that's exactly what I did with my dad, or without my dad, in his garage and his tools back when I was that age, because I grew up in a privileged world with a dad with a garage and tools and random boards. So now he gets to do that. So that's what's
fun, dude. That's what I'm saying. That's an amazing world to be in. Like I don't call it privilege. I just say, have some gratitude, right? Just go,
just good, normal quality life. And
well, we get a lot of benefits, and I mean, I agree with you. I think it's a, I wouldn't quite call it a criminal enterprise, but I know it's a very extractive engine that but we benefit from it. And, I never want to get to a place where I'm just like, well, woe is me, fuck the rest of the world. It's like, well, overall, we got some problems domestically. Yeah. People are all fussy, and people are too, stuck on social media or whatever. But for the most part, like, things are still pretty cool. And they seem to be getting better in a lot of places. So, I mean, it's a little tougher to buy groceries or whatever, but I can always, if it gets to a place where it's like, oh my God, I've stripped down my life to the bare essentials. It's as clean and simple as I can possibly make it, and I'm struggling, then you go, okay, now we got some problems, right? But right now I could simplify my life 10x from here, and I could literally be just like, I could be living like the Unabomber and be doing just fine on, $1,000 a year. I don't think I'd struggle at all. I think I'd be quite comfortable doing that. Right. So, but if I get stripped down to that level and then I can't make it, then I go, okay, now I got something we got to worry about. But until then I go, I'm not preparing for the apocalypse. I'm preparing for the things to just kind of keep going the way they've been going for the last 5,000 years. Just shit.
TikTok next human epoch. And superficially too, with spring coming, like, okay, it rained today, it was a little cooler, whatever, but just with the weather getting warmer, the sun's out more, it pulls me out of a wintertime pontification rut that I'll have, where I'm thinking about things too much and just kind of grinding in a box a little too much, and just going outside and like, damn it, I'm going to clean the garage, I'm going to build that thing, I'm going to get that tool running again and go outside and use it. And just with spring coming too, it's like entering a mental season for me where it's sprouting again, and you just feel better. It's so much of it is a mental war, or just, strengthening. So, but yes.
Well, hey, Johnny, it was great to see you today. Thanks for joining us as always. God bless, sir. I hope you have a great day and a great week. And good show.
Yep, it's been good. And before we go, play the deal.
Buy MicroSeed.
As a Bitcoiner, you know that taking self-custody is critically important. But if you've ever had a seed phrase, you've probably had it written down on something kind of like this. You can hide it or secure it, but paper burns, paper fades, paper gets wet, paper rots, paper blows in the wind. Paper has things written on it that might look important. So get off paper and get yourself a MicroSeed at microseed.io. Get the kit and crank out all the keys you'll ever need forever.